God wastes nothing. If He has allowed this to happen, He has something for you to gain out of it. Ask yourself, how is this happening for me instead of against me? What is this experience coming to teach me? And how can I turn this for good? And how can God turn this for my good? Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Lydia and I make faith-based content here on YouTube. I do release new videos every Tuesday. If you're new, welcome. I hope you continue with us and I hope this finds you exactly in your life when you need it the most. And if you're coming back, welcome back. Hope you're having an amazing one. We are in the middle of a series studying about how to become unshakable in our faith, because it's not a matter of if, but when life happens, we need to be able to be 1, ready, 2, know how to respond, and 3, find gain in our pain. That's what we're talking about, because God wastes nothing. If He has allowed it, He has something for you to gain out of it. Have a mentality, have a mindset that God always has diamonds in the desert for us to receive. David said, "Blessed be the Lord, my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. He is my steadfast love and my fortress, my stronghold and my deliverer, my shield, and He in whom I take refuge, who subdues people under me." He also said, "It is good for me that I was afflicted, that I might learn your statutes." There's always something good from every experience. God may not necessarily have been the one to orchestrate it, but if He allowed it, He knows that you can overcome it and He knows that He can use it for your good. So how are the ways, or which different things that we can actually gain from the trials of life? Firstly, growth. We learn from Joseph's life that none of us are born fully matured to handle everything that God has for us and everything that has been assigned to our lives. The reality is, God doesn't necessarily always orchestrate or write out everything that we go through. Sometimes it's our own choices, but He allows it because He knows what's necessary to build our capacity, to build our mental, our emotional, and our spiritual capacity to handle the assignment that's attached to our lives in different stages of our lives. Look at Israel, for instance. When they were first released or freed from Egypt, they didn't necessarily go into the promised land. Not because God hadn't prepared it for them, but because He said they still needed to get rid of the slave mentality. They needed to learn how to fight. They needed to learn how to carry the responsibility of freedom. So they had to learn little by little. Likewise, us as well. Certain seasons, certain things that we go through in our lives train us little by little to handle what we have been assigned. And also, the thing is, things that we go through and our life assignment is not always just about us. There are always people attached to us. And sometimes, depending on the weight of responsibility or the weight of influence that God is going to entrust you or has assigned to you, you need to learn to carry pain. You need to learn to carry bitterness. Some situations you need to go through so that you know how to walk others through them, you know how to mentor others through them, and you know how to have compassion. Look at Joseph. It says that at the end of his life, when he met his brothers, he said, Joseph replied, "Don't be afraid of me. Am I God that I can punish you? You intended it harm for me, but God intended it all for good. He brought me to this position so I could save the lives of many people. No, don't be afraid. I will continue to take care of you and your children." So he reassured them by speaking kindly to them. So sometimes, even the very people that mistreat you, God has actually called you to them. But God has to train your heart to be able to forgive and still have the maturity to love and care for them when the tables are turned. So the first opportunity is growth. And secondly is innovation. When we think of Noah, with there hadn't been any rain thus far in the world. So if there was no flood, Noah would never have needed to build a boat. So in that season, when we read in Genesis 6 to 8, God gave him the strategy, the design to build a boat. We wouldn't have boats literally today. And also, Noah's family had no option but to get along. It was in the season they had to figure out, no matter what, we are in close proximity for months. It sounds familiar, COVID. So we need to figure out how to get along in peace. And we also need to learn to cooperate, as we need to be dependent on one another in this situation. And God's plans for our lives, somehow, some way, there always is someone that we need to be in partnership with. It's never a solo act. Moses had Aaron, David had Jonathan and Joab, Paul had Silas, Jesus had his disciples, Elizabeth had Mary to have her baby leap. So we always need someone. So in that process of innovation, we learn to create things that have never been created, or to use things that already exist in a new way, and to learn to cooperate with those people God has placed in our lives. Thirdly, seasons of pain force us to use innovative thinking. In Corinthians, Paul said, we all experience times of testing, which is normal for every human being. But God will be faithful to you. He will screen and filter the severity, nature, and timing of every test or trial you face so that you can bear it. And each test is an opportunity to trust Him more. For along with every trial, God has provided for you a way of escape that will bring you out of it victoriously. And when we look at Moses literally encountered a lot of, he had to face the Red Sea, he faced bitter water, he faced no food, he faced no meat, he had to sustain millions of people in the desert without a shopping mall, grocery store nearby. He had to figure all these out. But it was in that season, in that wilderness, that he had to rely on God, not his own wisdom. So when we find ourselves in situations that are unexpected, when we find ourselves in seasons of pain, it forces us to, one, rely on the Holy Spirit and not just look at things as the way we've always done them or how others have always done them. Think about it. Moses was trained to lead millions of people in the wilderness, training and taking care of sheep. Before he could take care of people, there was no way in his mind he could have thought, okay, I'm taking care of sheep, God is training me to take care of millions. So what is God training you for right now in what seems mundane, in what seems painful? And also, at each bend of crisis, he had to look to God. It teaches us to, one, not rely on our natural thinking, but to rely on the wisdom of God. Storms of life force us to be creative and to tap into our spiritual intelligence, because you and I were never meant to live our lives merely relying on our natural way of thinking, our natural education. But God has placed so much in us that sometimes He has to allow things to force what's in us to come out. And fourth, rebounding. And this for me is Peter. He's the perfect example. Think about it. Peter, to build a church and to be, I guess, the first pastor in a sense, other than Jesus, had to taste what it is to fall, had to taste what it is to have your faith shaken and for you to fail. So that as a pastor, so that as the one called to be the rock that builds the church, can help others rise up when the faith fails. When you don't necessarily experience certain situations, it may be hard for you to be compassionate with other people because you see yourself only from your place of strength. You don't know what other people are going through. You don't know their emotions. But when you've tasted the bitterness of failure, when you face the bitterness of pain, when you face the bitterness of doing everything right, yet things still fail, then you are able to have compassion and be able to help others. So, my friend, do not despise the pain you're going through or you've gone through. Do not despise the mistakes that you've made. Yes, they were not great, but don't despise them. God would not have allowed them if He had nothing for you to gain and for others to gain through repurposing your pain. And lastly, new beginnings. And for this, Paul, Philippians 2:13. No, dear brothers and sisters, I have not achieved it, but I focus on this one thing, forgetting the past and looking forward to what lies ahead. I press on to reach the end of the race and receive the heavenly prize for which God, through Christ Jesus, is calling us. Sometimes crises, unexpected shakings, offer us an opportunity at a new beginning we didn't know we needed. Paul was very sincere in his serving and in his conviction for serving God, but he was sincerely wrong. Sometimes we are sincere, but we are going about it in the wrong way. So crises, or rather shakings of our faith, give us an opportunity for God to realign our faith to the truth and the true purpose for which He has called us. It was because what he went through that he was the perfect candidate to be able to help those furthest from God, the Gentiles, and even the Jews that just love God in tradition but not in genuine. That what he has experienced, that this new beginning that he had to fight. He knows what it takes to fight mental self-condemnation. He knows what it takes to fight letting go of the past. He knows what it takes to fight what you thought was right and to actually allow God to show you truly what is good. Because it's not what we think is good, but it's what God says is good. So he was the perfect person. So what you are going through makes you the perfect candidate to help someone who is in your situation 2 years from now, 5 years from now. So don't despise what you're going through. Allow God to repurpose your pain. Find gain in your pain. And Peter said, to be truly glad, there is wonderful joy ahead, even though you must endure many trials for a little while. These trials will show you that your faith is genuine. It is being tested as fire tests and purifies gold, though your faith is far more precious than mere gold. So when your faith remains strong through many trials, it will bring you much praise and glory and honor on the day when Jesus Christ is revealed to the whole world. God wastes nothing. If He's allowed it, He knows that you have something to gain. Refuse to waste your pain. That's it for today. Love you guys as always. Have an amazing one. And please, if you know anyone who right now they need encouragement on how to overcome a life situation, please do share these videos with them. Love you guys. Have an amazing one. Bye.